This administration's war on coal is costing you, and it's only going to get worse. For more, I'm joined by Robert Bryce, senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute. Robert, welcome back to the show. Always a pleasure to see you. And right in front of a holiday weekend, too, I feel lucky. Let's talk about, though, this war on coal. How much is this costing us? What the president's doing, his plan to shut down every coal plant in the country practically. How are we feeling it in our pocketbook?
Well, it's not clear yet, Jerry, to be perfectly honest with you. Why? Because the low price of natural gas. The EPA on March 27th said that they want to ban the construction of new coal-fired power plants. And why? Because they were able to do so because of the low cost of natural gas. 4 years ago this month, natural gas was trading for more than $10 per million BTUs. Right. Now it's about $2, $2.50. So that lower natural gas price is effectively masking what could be a significant price increase because of the attempt to outlaw coal.
Well, good point. I want to go back in time, though. January 2008, the president talking about what he would like to see happen to coal-fired plants. Here's the president.
If somebody wants to build a coal-fired plant, they can. It's just that it will bankrupt them because they're going to be charged a huge sum for all that greenhouse gas that's being emitted.
So there you have it, the president's promise from way back in 2008 that he'd like to see those coal-fired plants shut down. And already we've seen 57 of these plants closed due to these new EPA regulations. What is likely to be the impact down the road here, Robert? Because, look, in reality, we've started to see some of that development of nat gas slow down because the prices are so low for natural gas.
Sure. Well, it's clear that we are seeing a bunch of tens of thousands of megawatts of coal-fired capacity closing down in the United States, in part because of the low cost of natural gas. But the bigger issue is the tsunami of regulations that are affecting the coal-fired power generation fleet. We have rules on coal ash disposal that are pending, rules on air quality. And so if you look at all these rules and you think about, well, how does this fit then into the global picture? And I think that's the real mismatch, Jerry, and the real story here is that the EPA under Obama is attempting to outlaw new coal-fired power plants and make it very difficult for domestic plants that are now existing to operate at all. Meanwhile, what's happening globally? Coal consumption has increased 47% over the last decade. Over the last decade, coal consumption globally has increased more than the combined increase in oil and natural gas and nuclear.
It's across the planet. It's not, you're talking about like China is using coal. There's all these, countries all over the world emitting CO2. Does it even matter if we stop?
Well, that's the point that I was trying to get to. Exactly. That over the last 10 years, U.S. coal consumption has dropped by 5%. U.S. CO2 emissions over the last decade is down by about 2%. Meanwhile, global coal consumption is up 47%. Global CO2 emissions are up 28%. The issue is no longer the United States when it comes to CO2. It's the rest of the world. And what's the rest of the world doing? They're burning as much coal as they can possibly get their hands on.
So is your view that these rules don't even matter to the environment across the planet, that at the end of the day, China's more important, India's more important?
Well, that's clearly the point, that what the U.S. does now with regard to coal really doesn't matter at all. The broader issue is how, and that's the key issue. The EPA is saying we have to do something about the domestic coal-fired fleet because we want to do something about climate change. Well, the reality is it will do effectively nothing to reduce overall global CO2 emissions, and yet it will impose significant costs on the U.S. consumer.
But is the EPA trying to avoid climate change, or are they just trying to give a boost, spur development of these green energy products that they're pushing so hard, that are developed by friends and family, the solar panels, the battery cars? What do you say?
Well, I think that there's some truth to that, possibly, that they want to make electricity more expensive so it works to the favor of the renewables. But another key point here, Jerry, is that what we're seeing now with the EPA, we're just repeating the bad policy mistakes of the past. 1978, Congress outlawed natural gas with the Power Plant Industrial Fuel Use Act. Now they're saying we want to outlaw coal. It was a bad mistake. It was a bad policy move then. It's a bad policy move now.
Why did they outlaw the use of nat gas back then?
Well, there's a long story behind it, but in 1978, Congress thought that there was a shortage of natural gas, but it was an artificially created shortage. There was too much government intervention in the marketplace, and that created artificial shortages of gas. So Congress said, well, now we can't use natural gas to produce electricity. What was the result? A spate of new coal-fired power plants were built that now the Obama administration wants to shut down.
Congress is so smart, aren't they?
The irony here is enormous and truly painful, Jerry.
Well, I do want to talk about the economic impact of coal. It's
Sure.
Certainly, it's mine, the part of the world I'm from. My family's been involved in coal mining. Coal mining directly employs 136,000 people. Each coal mining job creates 3.5 more jobs in the economy. And you say we have a huge supply, 235 years supply of coal. You say we're not the Saudi Arabia of coal, we're OPEC. So we are the game when it comes to coal, right?
Absolutely. If you look at OPEC, we obsess about OPEC, right, in the oil markets.
Yeah.
The combined total of oil reserves in OPEC countries is about 1 trillion barrels of oil. The U.S. alone has 900 billion barrels of oil equivalent reserves of coal. We're the OPEC of coal, and yet we want to single-handedly disarm ourselves from using the fuel that we dominate like no other. I think it's a very bad policy move, all in the name of climate change, but it will have no discernible effect on carbon emissions or climate change.
Robert Bryce, just the facts when it comes to energy. I love it. Thanks for helping us out today. Have a great holiday weekend whenever yours starts. Thank you.